What's up, Bittensor community? This is Jeremy, aka School of Crypto. I just wanted to go over an interesting phenomenon in the community in terms of the effect that Bitcast has on all the subnets. If you don't know, Bitcast is a subnet that is an advertising and marketing engine that helps curate niche creators, and they basically produce YouTube videos in order to promote the subnet or project that wants to market their services to these investors and community members. So basically, Bitcast charges a 10 tau fee, I believe, and then in return, the subnets get a bunch of videos created on their behalf. And I just wanted to take a look at a few of the case studies involved in terms of projects that got involved with Bitcast and what type of effect it had on the price. So let's start out with the first one, Autopia. This is the subnet that is a AI agent automation type of platform that helps businesses make their operations more efficient, and they don't have to hire as much labor for similar output. So they had a brief, which is basically what Bitcast puts out to all the video YouTube content creators. And so they put in a brief out on October 31st, and the price was at 0.00371 tau. And yesterday, on November 6th, the price went up all the way to 0.0051, so almost a 50% increase in price. So far, so good. And now we have Synth, which is basically a price path volatility crypto and asset prediction model that's actually been doing really well. And they had a brief on October 21st. Their price was at 0.0102, and yesterday on November 6th, the price was 0.0191. So that's almost a 2x in price, which is pretty awesome for Synth. Then we have Void AI. So Void AI basically they provide services to bridge over people in Solana in order to buy tau and subnets. So it's just another way for other people and other blockchains to be able to purchase tau and its related ecosystem tokens. So on July 25th, the price was at 0.0605, and then a couple months later, it kind of slowly went up. It went to 0.01399, so basically more than a 2x in price, and then it kind of slowly settled to 0.0082. So this is in a much bigger time horizon. So about maybe 3.5 months, a little less than 3.5 months. The price still is up about, I would say, 30-ish% from where it was originally, but it did have an initial run up. And, you know, could you relate that to Bitcast? Would it be more so that they came out with their bridging solution to Solana? That might have been a factor as well. So then we have this next row here where kind of you had some initial run-ups and then it kind of went back to the price it was originally at. You have Liam, the GPU service provider. They were at 0.05652 on September 7th. It had an initial run-up all the way to 0.06183 about a couple weeks later. And then as far as yesterday's price, it went back to the 0.056, it's actually 0.056 tau region. So basically, it came back to where it started about a couple months before. You have Bitmind here, the deepfake detector solution that came out with their brief on August 28th. The price was at 0.01897. About a month later, it rose up to 0.01979. So basically a 20% increase in price. And then as far as yesterday's prices is concerned, it went back to the 0.0181 region, so a little bit less than where it started. You have ridges here. Started out at 0.08425 on August 28th. And then granted, before it had a huge run up where it went up about 10x, 15x based on all the benchmarks that they were beating from their centralized competitors like Claude and OpenAI. But they had their brief August 28th, and then literally the next day it went up to 0.1039. So about a 20-30% increase, and then slowly has kind of come down to a 0.0644 as far as yesterday. Then you have the Yanez, basically the crime prevention project, really interesting. Had their brief September 7th, it was 0.00476. And then a couple months later, it's just kind of slowly gone down to 0.0032. So hadn't seen any run up since that brief and just kind of slowly went down. Same thing with Swap. So they provide a liquidity pool that you can access on Base, the layer 2 blockchain off of Ethereum. So it started out at 0.00724. And then a couple months later, it's just kind of gone down to 0.00538. Shoots the number one subnet as far as admissions goes, and as far as the product goes, the serverless compute subnet that hosts 60 plus decentralized models, 85% cheaper than AWS. Had a brief July 18th, 0.16456 talos worth. And then it's just slowly gone down to 0.0777. So one factor that I wanted to kind of put into play here is the run-up that Tau itself had. So basically it went from starting on October 10th, where you had the biggest liquidation event in crypto history by tenfold, actually. So $20 billion wiped out in leverages. After that event, Tau itself went on basically a 2x run-up. So if you look at a lot of these charts, kind of like in the middle down here, you can basically assume that in those last few weeks of October, these subnets were absolutely affected because a lot of the subnets weren't able to keep up with that Tau run, which is very hard to do when you have a main asset appreciating so much. Usually those beta plays, or in this case the subnets, have a hard time keeping up. So I want to keep that in mind. What can we take away from these briefs and the effect that Bitcast has on them? Well, ultimately all these projects are getting more exposure, they're getting more eyeballs, they're getting more views. It's really hard to do research in Bittensor, and as far as just what the subnets are doing, what they're providing, how do you value them. There's a bunch of things in terms of staking and swapping and figuring all that out. So getting exposure to subnet projects is a big plus. And ultimately, yes, they can do their own marketing, but Bitcast itself is a native ecosystem project that is able to really know the ins and outs of who the user is and who the community member is and who's interested, and they're able to curate these content creators like Mark Jeffrey, like Tau Templar, like some other ones, Siam Kid. All these guys, are able to pick up these briefs and be able to do a really good deep dive on what these subnets provide. So, again, I think like you see kind of short-term appreciations here, right? So this is about a week. This was a few weeks. right over here. It took a little bit longer to go up, but again, I think it was because Void came out with that bridging solution that kind of helped them go up. And then you kind of see the same kind of thing with Liam. Couple weeks run up, went back down, corrected. Bitmine went up, down, went back up, corrected. It took one day, and then it kind of slowly went down for ridges. Unfortunately, these guys over here weren't able to see the appreciation in terms of price after that Bitcast brief came out. But ultimately, again, I think it just speaks to, just giving more exposure to these projects, showing that it does at least have a short-term uptick in price. But after that, it's kind of up to the subnets and their marketing and their strategies in terms of how they're going to monetize their product, how they're going to be able to, increase the efficiency of those alphanomics, and also their, incentive mechanism for the miners. Those are all really important things. So this is just kind of one piece of the puzzle, and I think it's an important one. I think that having exposure, getting people's attention, but then kind of after that, running with it, right? Not just kind of stopping there and like, all right, well, we already got thousands of views. We already increased in price, so we don't have to do anything more. No, like, you have to do all those things in order to, continue to get that volume, because with that new mechanism that Bittensor has, like as far as the emissions goes with the tau flow, ultimately these projects have to figure out how they're going to get positive inflow into their liquidity pools and have it constantly increase in volume day by day, week by week, month by month. And that takes more than just a Bitcast brief. Like, this is a good springboard to kind of get more attention, but ultimately these projects need to focus on those variables that I just mentioned. So, kudos to Bitcast for creating this advertising and marketing mechanism to help subnets get more exposure to the community. And I think it's going to be even more impactful when they open up the gates to X creators and allow them to kind of join in on the fun and get emission rewards on behalf of their curated content. So yeah, I think it's a plus, it's a positive, but it's not the end all be all in terms of, signing up for this Bitcast brief, spending your 10 tau to promote your project. And it looks like it does ultimately have a positive effect on these projects, other than maybe these three for some reason. But it's definitely an important tool for the ecosystem to use. So I appreciate the time and look forward to coming out with some more videos, all Bittensor related, and hope you have a great day. Take care.